Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. Get your lab coats and goggles ready because in today's episode, we're talking hop science with Yakima Chief Hops. I'm Joanne and this is Tori.
Yo.
And we're two beer loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us.
So first off, thank you so much for agreeing to do this because I think we're both really excited about this. We had so many questions. So nice. We always go and like have conversations when we're doing the podcast stuff about hops and like that kind of stuff afterwards. And I'm like, oh, hop science is just so fascinating. So I think one day we were recording and basically I said to Joe, I'm just going to reach out to Yakima Chief Hops and just see if someone will have a conversation. I kind of didn't expect a response back. So when I did, that was brilliant. So I guess to kick things off, do you kind of want to just say to anybody who maybe doesn't know who you are, who are you, where do you work, what your role is, that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Tessa Schilaty. I'm the sensory and brewing scientist at Yakima Chief Hops, which is probably the coolest title I've ever had in my life. Maybe the coolest title I ever will have. I'm not sure. I'm a nerd, so the fact that it has scientists in it is great. And then, I basically taste beer for a living. Before I talk about like the specifics of my job, though, I'll tell you a little bit more about Yakima Chief Hops, the company I work for, which is one of the major hop suppliers. There's kind of three major, I would say, big hop suppliers. But what makes YCH a little bit special is that it's actually 100% grower owned. So hop farmers own the company. And what's cool about that is it just really helps break down some of the barriers that some brewers feel between, the hops that they grow and the actual farmers that grow them. When, sometimes when you buy from one of the big hop companies, they just show up and that's great. And they can be great hops, but I think it's quite cool to really see the brewer and the farmer be more directly connected. And I think brewers really like that aspect of that relationship building. And a lot of these hop farmers have been doing this for like 10 generations, so it's just really, it's a really special industry. And I think it's really nice that YCH sort of facilitates the connection of those two pieces so that a brewer can know where her hops come from.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, it's really nice. And I get to go out on the hop farms all the time. And as someone who came more from beer than from hops, it's pretty fun to do that. And then I guess, so a little bit about me and my background. I actually did a neuroscience undergrad.
That's
people
phenomenal.
Think that's
that is what? I find that stuff so interesting though, like that, like when you read into neuroscience, not that this podcast is about neuroscience, but like when you start reading articles that are even remotely like edging on neuroscience, it's like the most interesting stuff. Like that blows my mind. How did you go from there to beer?
Well, and it's funny you said that, it's because it's so interesting. And that's literally why I did it. I got to the part, I think American universities are a little bit different than ones in the UK because we have to do all these general university requirements, which are just like random classes to round you out as a person or whatever. And they only let you do so many of those. And then they're like, you have to pick a major, like you have to specialize in something. So I was like getting emails from the university that was like, pick something and then leave eventually. I was like, fine. So I picked neuroscience because I thought it was the most interesting one. And I never really intended to like do anything with it necessarily, or I didn't really know. But what's interesting to tie it back into what I do now is that actually, there's a lot of biochem, a lot of cellular biology, a lot of organic chemistry and neuroscience. And those are all pretty important factors of brewing as well. So a lot of my kind of base of STEM comes from that undergrad. And then also I do sensory science specifically now, which is a lot of psychology because humans are the instrument that you're using to collect your data. It's not just, some analytical piece of equipment that you just squirt a sample into and then it like beep up, boop, shoots out numbers. It's like a living, breathing, feeling, thinking person with a really, diverse diverse pasts and experiences with different cuisines and cultures and all these different things that will really impact the data they give you. So there's a lot of psychology in sensory as well. But anyway, I graduated that program and I was like, well, I don't really know. So I was traveling around doing the kind of scumbag backpacker post undergrad thing that so many college students do. And I ended up working at a couple different breweries and different places I was traveling and really liked it. And then realized that I could kind of combine my love of science and my love of brewing with the graduate program at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, where I did a MSc in brewing and distilling, and then came here directly after that. So that's kind of my background. And now, as the sensory and brewing scientist here, I basically help design and execute experiments to investigate basically different parameters of hop quality and performance in beer. So we also have a sensory scientist who's more focused on hop sensory, so like how the raw product smells, but then I kind of like take the ball from her at that point and pass it on into the brewing. So we do a lot of experimental trials when we're looking at introducing a new hop format or a new variety development, storage studies. I don't know if you guys have heard much about like the kind of smoke taint issue that has occurred for kind of the first time last year from the wildfires on the West Coast.
Right.
And just kind of, we've been doing a ton of research into, mitigating those impacts and, different stuff like that. So it's a research and development role. And I have a sensory panel that I keep trained. It's about 20 people who will come in and taste blind coded samples of beers and fill out a ballot. And then I can take that data and run statistics on it and make conclusions about the experiment, or not make conclusions, as the case sometimes may be. But
that is like so fascinating. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I am from the US, and I feel like if I knew, I live over here now, obviously that's why, I'm not over there, like, sorry, our time differences are just so far apart because I feel like it. But yeah, I remember like when I was going to college or uni, and like, I don't think that I ever in my thoughts even thought like I could do this and it would lead me down this path. So I hope that people like listening to it, even just the first 5 minutes in, that are maybe younger and are like, I kind of don't know what I want to do. I really like beer, but like, I don't know how to go about it. Like, I think that's brilliant, because I think you've just kind of shown how you can kind of go into something that doesn't even seem like it necessarily connects to beer, and it just brings you back round. So that is just, that is an incredible story. So yeah,
I think I had a lot of people that were a lot older and a lot wiser than me telling me, that they had wished that they'd like done what they wanted to do more than doing what they thought other people thought they should do or whatever. And it really did like truly lead me to something that I'm both good at and passionate about, which is sort of the dream. But that's
like the best
it's obviously very
experience and advice, like do what you want to do, not what everyone thinks you should do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I recognize that it's definitely like a privileged position to have been able to go to university and major in whatever I wanted and go travel afterwards and stuff. So I know that that's, not everyone's journey. So I'm grateful to have had
I think
that.
it's also not everybody, not everyone's necessarily suited to go into college, and that's okay as well. But it's interesting how like I think I know that from my experience when I went to school for print journalism, and I didn't even finish uni, if I'm honest, and it was one of those things that I accrued a lot of debt and I dropped out, but I know a lot of people around me, I'm going to be 32 this year, and I know a lot of people around my similar age. It was a time where we were really kind of being pushed when we graduated high school, and it was like, you have to go to uni, if you don't go, what are you going to do? You're not going to be able to get a job, and there was a lot of pressure to go because you felt you had to go or you just wouldn't succeed in life. And that's not the case at all, especially nowadays. But I think some people went, I'm actually really passionate about this. So then they just sort of dropped out and went, I'm never going to be able to do anything with this anyway. So I think if nothing else, your story kind of shows that, like, well, if you stick with it and you do something that maybe it's not for you and you drop out, and that's fine, but maybe if you stick with it and you pivot, you can kind of find ways of which you can have that work to your advantage. So I think there's a lot to be said about that, but also I also agree it's not the only path there is in life, is there? But yeah, I am very thirsty. So we have got these, you were going to speak to us about Cryopop, and we have actually managed to get New Bristol Brewery and Yakima Chief Hops collab.
Amazing.
But I have to, so somebody asked me this because I said when I went to go get this beer, I was talking to the guy that owns the shop, and I said I need this, and I'm having a conversation with Yakima Chiefs, and he went, we've got this, and he's like, is it Yakima or Yakima? Because I'd say Yakima, and I said I've always said Yakima, so I need to ask you before we start, and can you just, for the record, tell us how we're supposed to pronounce it?
Absolutely, it's Yakima. It's Yakima. Yeah.
Yakima.
But I've heard a lot of people from the UK say Yakima, and I'm like, tee. But also we're probably saying it wrong because it's like a native word. It's from the Yakima Nation, so I'm sure we're not saying it right either, but
as long as the intended way, the way you guys intended it to be.
Yes.
I was like, I swear it's Yakima. They were like, no, I think it's Yakima. I was like, I will ask that question.
No, you can go back and gloat now because you were correct.
There's got to be some
I also
sort
have
of,
one.
What have you got?
Well, it's with Fair State Brewing, which is a brewery here in the US. And this was the Cryopop beer that we had them brew it, or we brewed it in collaboration with them, and then we included a 4-pack of these in our like launch boxes that we sent out when we launched the product, and had all the info and branding and stuff. And actually that was a little while ago, and so I was a little bit suspicious that this would have held up. But then I popped a can a couple days ago, and I was like, dang, for a hoppy beer, she's lasting. So it's 11:40 here, but I'm on UK time, baby.
That is it. Like,
I'm like, it's okay if it's too early for you to have a beer. That's fine.
It's never too early.
But it's also kind of like if you're at or nearby or close enough to an airport, it's kind of like you're on international time. So it's okay. Precisely. If there's an airport within driving distance from you, it counts. It's fine.
Within driving distance, that's literally anywhere in the world.
Well, that's it. It's fine.
I love this system, but this is actually not even my first beer of the day, because I did a sensory panel at 9 a.m. So
your job is amazing.
That's good going. I'm impressed.
Just a question, I guess, before we get into the whole Cryopop notes and all that. I know, for example, I had this, I was going to ask it later, but it kind of seems relevant now because we're having a collaboration beer. You're having one as well. I know that we had, when Talus came out, we had Sirens one. And I know that it was like a few that were launching across Europe. Do you know, like, how do you go about doing these partnerships? Like, do you pick who gets to use these beers first for commercial brewing, or do they have to apply for it? Or like, how does that all work? I'm quite curious about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It kind of depends, but basically we sort of, we have a team of RSMs, regional sales managers, who have really great relationships with their, the breweries that they work with. And we kind of leave it up to them to sort of identify breweries that have, an interest in scientific rigor. We want breweries who keep meticulous records and know exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, and kind of have a pretty good understanding of the sort of underlying science of brewing. There are great brewers who that's not their forte, but that's the type of brewer we tend to target for this sort of thing. Because when we are going to do like a collaboration and send some hops to a brewer to work with, we really want that feedback so that we can give it to, Yakima Chief Ranches is kind of our breeding arm of Yakima Chief Hops. They do the agronomy and the genetics and new variety development kind of with us or whatever. And we want to be able to give them really good feedback from the brewers. That's the whole point. We kind of leave it up to the RSMs to make those identifications, brewers that they recognize as being pretty reliably good brewers who give good feedback. And then, if things go well at that stage, then we will commercialize and make things available for breweries to buy, kind of on a commercial or even like a homebrew scale. Like for example, with Talus, that was HBC 692 for a really long time. So you probably could have even had beers in the market that said HBC 692, I'm pretty sure it was. And, that's before it was like officially branded and launched and everything. So it's kind of a process of slowly, like right now, brewers are working with, a small handful of brewers are working with HBCs that are in the like thousands numbers. But it'll still be, at least a couple of years before any of those get branded. So yeah, it's just sort of a slow process, but it's mostly up to the RSMs to identify brewers that they want to work with for projects like that. But if brewers are interested in projects like that, they can always contact their RSM and say, hey, we'd love to get involved with any kind of research brewing that you're doing. And the RSM will probably connect them with me, and then we can go from there. So it's definitely like available to any brewer that's interested, I would say, given that they are willing to collaborate and give feedback, because that's what it's all about.
Brilliant. So if any of the brewers watching, I know that there are a few people I know that are involved in brewing that actually do listen to it. You'll see a friendly face if you want to try to get involved with it. So definitely worthwhile at least trying if you have any type of interest. So leading absolutely on to Cryopop. Tell us about Cryopop. I'm excited to drink it.
Yeah, so this is a blend of Cryo Hops. So Cryo Hops being a product that we have that's more of like a T45 like concentrated lupulin pellet, meaning that you get less of that vegetative bract component and more of the hop oils, the lupulin glands that contain all the juicy stuff that you want. Not that the bract isn't important for other things, but it's just sort of concentrated. And so we had Cryo Hops as a product category. You can get many different types of hops in that format. But the Cryopop is a blend of several different varieties, but what makes it special is that the way that we identified what we were going to put into the blend was actually using our analytical data from our in-house chemistry analysis lab, who had basically for years we've been working on identifying the compounds that are present in hops that actually survive the brewing process to make it into the final beer. So for, the hop oils that we're talking about all the time, people often want to talk about myrcene, humulene, caryophyllene, as these are the biggest component of the hop oil portion of any given hop. But what we've seen is they're actually not very soluble in beer, and they don't survive the brewing process. The brewing process has a lot of high heat. There's boiling, there's yeast sedimenting out. There's all kinds of, it's tumultuous environment for a compound. And so these compounds are actually leaving at pretty high rates. So they're not surviving. So why are we talking about them? Why is that the focus? Why are we saying, oh, it's got this much myrcene in it, when the myrcene's not going to, really impact your final beer that much, especially if you use it kind of like in hot side at all. So we used, we did a series of experiments where we did an analysis on the hops, and then we brewed with them and did analysis on the beer, and just, kind of saying A to B, what's going through, identified a series of compounds, and then used hop analysis that we do on every harvest lot of every hop that Yakima Chief Hops receives during harvest. We know what these compounds are and how much of them are in every single lot that we receive. So we took that data and we selected a handful of hop lots that had the highest quantities of these survivable compounds. So we were like, ignore myrcene, ignore humulene. Let's look at the ones that we know are going to make it into the beer. And then we blended them, and that is Cryopop. And then obviously, there were a few iterations. We brewed with it. We made some tweaks. We put it out into brewers' hands. We made some tweaks, and finally landed on this particular blend, which I feel like pretty consistently delivers like super well. I'll let you guys tell me what you smell before I say.
It smells juicy. Like I smell like
juicy.
It just smells juicy, and I love it.
I'm getting grapefruit, some citrus.
Yeah, pretty big citrus notes for sure.
I definitely get grapefruit for sure. I almost get like a bit of peachiness, and I don't know if that's just because I'm keen to like there's the juicy, it's a sweet juiciness, and then my brain goes to peach, but I'm getting like a light peachiness to it.
Yeah, peach is one of the big descriptors that our panel has put forward for this one, like peach and kind of mango. Those like,
You're vindicated. I got something.
We need to get you on the panel.
She never believes that what she's smelling is right.
It's normally I'm like, did I get that right? Or like I can smell something in particular, but I can't, like it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't figure it out. And then Joe's like, is it this? And I was like, yes, it's exactly what it is.
It's imposter syndrome. I feel like no one ever feels like they're like
we talk about it all the time,
all
like
the
between
time.
us. So yeah, 100%. Yeah.
She messaged me the other day and she's like, there's this, I don't know what it is. She's like, it's not smoky. I was like, is it woody? She's like, no. I was like, is it tobacco?
And I was like, yes,
that's what it
is. It's because that's like a really hard one to explain, isn't it?
Tobacco is hard. We actually put it under the woody category.
Because I was saying it's not quite woody and it's not quite smoky. It's kind of like a blend of the both, and I can't figure out how to describe it. It's on the tip of my tongue. And she said tobacco, and I went, yes.
Just means that we've tasted beers too many times.
That's
and I know
what beer was that?
What was it?
I don't even remember. What was it that we were? I don't even remember.
I can't remember.
What we were drinking. That I was drinking.
We drink
It was a dipper. It was the Phantom Life in the Fast Lane dipper, and because it was a dipper, I don't know, I just wasn't expecting. It smelled really fruity, so I wasn't expecting the taste to be tobacco-y, and I was like, I can't place it because the smell is throwing me off of what I'm tasting. Sensory stuff. It's crazy.
I know, it's weird when those two things don't align.
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of savory, but not in a bad way.
It's like that tropical fruit that goes almost like overripe.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, like not in a bad way, but it's like really juicy, like almost off tropical fruit. Sometimes they say papaya.
Yes.
Because and papaya can almost go like sweaty or something. Like it's almost a savory tropical fruit. It's nice, but it's like sitting right on that border.
It's not that where sometimes when you've got a lot of hop aroma, you get that kind of onion garlic. It's not that.
No,
it's the nicer side of that.
I think I get a bit of like pineapple in it as well, because what I'm picking up is kind of like where my brain goes is like tropical smoothie meets like cocktail. Like I think of it made me think of like a pina colada, but not heavy on the coconut, if that makes sense, because it was that like pineapple juiciness is what the tropical fruits that come through for me.
And there is kind of a sweet aromatic component, I think, that goes like almost kind of honey or vanilla, maybe.
It's coming across slightly perfumey to me.
Yeah, we got some pretty high floral notes.
Yeah.
In some of the brews. Depends on the application, I think. But
so are there any other like aromas that we should have got that we didn't get from that? Or was that pretty much, did we kind of get things that people normally say, or?
Yeah, I feel like you guys pretty much nailed it.
Yes, we're good at this.
Yeah, high citrus, high tropical, just juicy, fruity.
Yeah.
But with a little touch of kind of the sweet aromatic notes as well. Yeah, 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
Well done.
Should we go in for the taste? Right, cheers, guys.
Oh yeah, I already did. Sorry.
So did I.
Oh. It's not as it's a lot lighter than I thought it was going to be. I think I was expecting it to be this, it's not thin, but I think I was expecting it to be like a heavier, thicker, because the smell was so pungent, like in a good way, that I was expecting it to almost be a bit more like heavier than it was. And it's really light, and it just feels like I could drink this. It's very sessionable because you're not getting overloaded on sweetness or something that's too heavy, if that makes sense, too creamy, where you're like, oh, after a while, I think I'd be a bit full. It doesn't come through like that at all.
They must have had a
nicely sessionable.
Good malt bill then.
6%.
Oh, that's decent.
Yeah.
I think mine's a little higher. 6.6, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, the aroma versus the taste thing. I always instruct my panelists actually. So we have a flavor sheet on the ballot. It's digital, but they smell it and taste it. And that's all the flavors. And then the next page is the taste page of the ballot. And I actually have them plug their noses because there's this phenomenon where you smell something that smells really juicy, fruity, sweet aromatic, then you're likely to rate the sweetness as higher. But the residual sugar could actually be like so low, which it sounds like is probably kind of the case with what you guys are drinking.
Definitely.
When it's on the palate,
I definitely think so.
It's pretty light. So I actually just have them plug their noses to like blank out all that biasing. Yeah. And it's good for mouthfeel stuff too, like astringency and warming and stuff, because your nose will detect a lot of things and tell your brain that it should be a certain way, when maybe it's not necessarily that way.
Yeah, no, I think it is that definitely changes it. It doesn't really change that much. I think it does still have that very similar where it's like sweet, but again, it's not. I think it smells maybe sweeter than it is, and I always find that really interesting. How you kind of what you just said, a bit of if you're drinking it, you obviously naturally get some of that aroma in as well, and that can just mislead you. And like Joe and I have sort of done that in the past. Like I think I'm tasting this, but I can't tell if that's just because when I go to take a sip of it, that's the first thing that hits me as a smell. Sensory stuff is quite interesting. Like, do you ever do like blind tasting with your sensory panel? Because
almost always. So we blind code everything, because if I told you that this is an IPA, even just knowing that much, you will bring a certain set of expectations to the sample. We actually have like our panelists sit in these booths that have red lighting. I don't know if you've ever seen that before in sensory, but
I've seen it.
Yeah. So it basically occludes any like biasing visual information, so that they can't even see the color of the beer or the hops. We use the same space for both beer and hops, but either way, we just want them to be focusing on the aroma and the flavor. There's been studies, and I cite this study all the time, and I actually don't know if it was a real study or what, but I talk about the study all the time. I should just like look it up so I can properly cite it, but I am pretty sure this happened, or maybe it's folk science. I don't really know, but I could see it happening even if it didn't really happen, which is that like people spiked like caramel food coloring into Bud Light and gave it to people, and people were like, oh, it's chocolatey. It's I'm getting notes of coffee and tobacco and stuff like that. And then they were like, it's Bud Light, it's brown Bud Light. So we want to avoid anything like that.
I had a conversation with somebody that was saying how they either they knew somebody or it's some way they had a relationship with this person that does this, but this person that they know does like wine tasting, and they had two distinct sort of bottles, same thing in both but different labels on them, and they'd be like, okay, try one, try the other, and then be like, how, which one did you prefer, which one did you like more? And then naturally they go to the one that has the more eye-catching label, because that's drawn their attention, and they've got, oh, that one, and they're like, why do you like that one? They're, oh, I don't know, it felt fuller, it felt this, it felt that, but like really it's the same thing. But it was just it's that test to see, okay, if you put something like in a prettier packaging, for example, is somebody then going to go, that's better because it actually looks like it might be more expensive than another label or something like that, and that automatically gives you that unconscious bias already about how you think you're going to react if it's a label you really don't like versus something that you think looks extravagant or more expensive, better taste to it. Your unconscious bias is going to kick in, and naturally your brain's already saying, I bet I'm going to like that one more. And it's just that's really interesting. No, I'd never seen the red lighting or anything like that, so that's quite interesting.
It's the same with like a white IPA and a white stout and a black IPA, isn't it? Because you pick it up and you think, oh, this is what I'm going to get, and then you don't. And that how your brain works around that is really interesting.
It's good to be disoriented that way. I think it's humbling.
If you close your eyes and you drink, so like we've had black IPAs, or it's like you close your eyes and you drink it, and you're like, hang on a minute, that's this, or a white stout. We had one the other night, and it's just like, if I closed my eyes and took a sip of this and then I looked at it, I'd be like, that's not what that's supposed to look like at all.
What's a white stout?
Have you not got white stouts over there?
I don't think so.
Do you not get them? They are like I absolutely love white stouts because there's so much, like a lot of the times there's so much like white chocolate to them as opposed to like cacao, and then you get the roastiness.
So it's a pale beer, but it will have like chocolate, coffee, roasty. So they do it with, because we looked this up, we just did this in our episode. They'll use a light grain bill, but then they'll use like cacao nibs or green coffee. So the coffee beans before they roast it, so you don't get the color.
Yeah.
Or they'll
cool.
sprinkle
I'll have to
just a
keep
little
an
bit
eye out.
in. Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see this photo. The lighting might mess this up, but this
right,
was
let's see what we
my
can do.
double chocolate white stout.
Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it looks like an IPA.
Yeah. And they look like an IPA, and then you drink it, and
That's
it's
wild.
And it's
coffee and chocolate
roasty
and
like,
roasty.
yeah. Oh,
Ooh, yum.
biscuity. That's just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, love it. Next time you'll have to come like over to the UK. You'll have to have
absolutely
some white stouts because they're amazing.
Yeah.
I live in hop country, so it's like IPAs and every iteration of an IPA around here. And
can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
That is beyond
obviously
fair.
it's good, and I do quite like IPAs, but to be honest, when I'm kind of beer exploring on my own personal time, I tend to gravitate towards not hoppy beers because I don't want to like become tired of the thing I
It's always
drink
good
all the
to
time
and try around and all that.
Totally. Yeah. And I like I love the UK beer scene for that. I mean, obviously there's tons of IPAs now, but the traditional beers there being so malt forward it's
quite interesting because I think over here, and I don't know, Joe, if you disagree or not, I think like over here we do get a lot of, at least from a consumer aspect, everyone's sort of idolizing these US breweries, and I think we just kind of don't realize that there's certain things like white stout that we do over here. I wouldn't say we do it all the time, but I'd say more regularly, that maybe like if you had just never seen one before, I just assumed you guys would have had it, because I feel like a lot of what we do is all like, oh, we want to do something that's like similar to what the US scene is doing. So that's quite interesting that you guys don't really have that.
I mean, maybe we do, and I just haven't like paid attention. Or
the US
noticed.
is huge. That's fair.
Yeah,
totally. So it might just be a me thing and not a US thing. But yeah, I'd not really never come across one of those to my knowledge.
Yeah,
that's right. I did that same thing with like green hops, where it's like I'd never heard green
I
hop beers until I came
here,
and then I was like, we don't really have that in the US, and then other people were like, yes, we do, and I was like, oh, because I never knew. Like, I'm from Boston, like we never had green hop beers in Boston, to my knowledge. So I was like, we don't have that. So I totally can relate to that of like, yeah, we don't do that. And then I'm sure someone will go like, yeah, we do. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we do. We do it loads.
Yeah.
We
and
do
I'm in Kent, so I'm right where we're growing all the hops.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually really sad because there was a hop field like 15 minutes down the road that was right by a nice little lay-by, and you could park up and you could go and look at the hops in the hop field. The since last year, because the requirement for hops went down during lockdown over here, the farmers decided that he's not going to grow East Kent Goldings anymore. He's been growing East Kent Goldings for I don't know, generations, and they've decided not to do it anymore. And that I keep driving past that field, and they've like they weren't growing, but the poles were still there. I was like, maybe they're just making it fallow for a year and they can do it. Then the poles came down, and I'm like, no more hop field. There's still some more. There's still some more in Faversham. There's still more around, but not the one that I used to drive past is now empty, and they're sowing it with something else, and that made me really sad.
She used to go hop peeping.
I did. I used to go
like,
look at the East Kent Goldings.
They're growing.
I'm like, these Kent Goldings have grown. They're not there.
They're
now.
so charming. Hops are such a charming agricultural product. Like they're so cool. The fields look so cool, and they're all like whimsical. And I don't know. They're just fun.
Doing their thing.
Yeah.
I've seen people use like hops, like green hops picked as like a decoration. Like there's a bottle shop near me, a hoppy place, and they had, at least, I don't know if they still have it, for the longest time, they just had green hops like sort of around one of their door frames. And I was like, this looks so nice. And they were like, yeah, we've preserved it. We've had it for like X amount of time. It looks really nice. And I was thinking like the front of my house, you know how you can have like vines growing up? I was like, do you think I could have like hop plants like growing up the front of my house like vines, instead of having like, I don't know, other vinous plants? Like, would that work?
You totally
can. I tried to grow some this year. Tried last year from seed, and I got nothing. This year they started growing, and then they weren't big enough to plant outside, and then they just didn't make it. So I think
next year's our year, Joe.
Next year I'm getting a rhizome, and I'm gonna do it that way.
Yeah, do a rhizome.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who lives in Thurso in the far north of Scotland who grows hops. Not robustly, but they do grow on the north coast of Scotland. So
say how
if he can do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I'm in Kent. Like, this is the soil. This is the place to do it. Like, I need to get them going, and then it'll be fine.
Next year's our year for sure.
Yeah.
one more question on the Cryopop stuff. So how long from the start of when you started first saying, let's develop this, let's do this, to the point that it was ready for commercial brewing? Like, was that a year? Was that numerous years? Like, how long does that actually, that particular process take?
I would say closer to numerous years, although this particular product is kind of slightly unusual just in that there was a lot of research that was happening around these survivable compounds before we ever necessarily said we were going to try to like make a product out of that research. You know, a lot of it was just research for, you know, research's sake, I guess. But, you know, we're not a university or a nonprofit or whatever. So, you know, I think probably they knew in the back of their minds that it would eventually lead to some kind of product development, but it wasn't necessarily like, oh, we want to make a blend of cryo hops that does XYZ. It was kind of like, whoa, we have all this research that is super compelling. How can we kind of like use this research to, you know, help brewers make better beer, basically, which is the end goal of most of what we do, is to try to help brewers do their jobs better. And so I think, you know, we had this big body of research and then had this idea of how we could, you know, manifest it into a product. And probably after that idea, it was probably about a year, maybe a year and a half of kind of trying different blends, brewing internally, sending them out, as I kind of outlined before. And then we launched it last March, April.
I was going to say, I don't think it was that far because we had the Brew York. I remember you did the tasting at Bigfoot. For that, and I think it had been out for not a massive amount of time. I think.
I'm obviously not a marketing person. I don't have all these dates, but so and I would say that's probably pretty typical for a product. You know, we try to be we try to move pretty quickly when we have ideas for new stuff. You know, luckily we have a pretty capable R&D team that is resourced and, you know, given what we need to do what we need to do and turn it around in a pretty quick way. And I know our sales team and marketing team really like to kind of like push you know, if we've got something, we want to like, you know, jump on it and make it available. And there's a lot of like excitement around new product releases, which is really fun. So we try to move quickly and anticipate needs and be prepared to meet them. And, you know, to do that, you have to invest pretty heavily in your systems, but Cryopop's a pretty good result, I would say. Like, as someone who, you know, isn't in sales or marketing and doesn't necessarily need to like ask anyone explicitly to buy it, I really like this product. Like, I'm quite happy with how it turned out.
Yeah, I think it's sweet and fruity and just, I don't know, it's nice. What were you going to say, Jen?
I like how it works with other hops. So we were just saying, I did the tasting of Brew York's set where they had the single hop and then they mixed it with others. I think it's really interesting what it does, how it bolsters other hops in different ways. Like, that was really interesting about it as well.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about how it's almost like it can be used as sort of almost like a salt or like an MSG or something in a brew, where it's like not necessarily dominating, but just kind of like lifting other flavors, which I think is a pretty fun one. I wish I could have tried those beers, man. Maybe I'll need to get our brewery.
They were really
if I thought that I could confidently send them to you and they wouldn't get confiscated. Shop near me still has some. I still have a set, and the shop near me sells the set. I would get them and try to send them to you, but I'm not confident they won't.
I know it's not easy right now.
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not normally easy in general to send beer,
exactly,
because every state is different and they just really don't like it. So I think not even attempting it.
Yeah, I think sometimes someone at the post office is just like, these look good. I can say that there's a law. No one will question me.
Yeah. My sister was like, can I send you? I was supposed to go back at Christmas last year and I couldn't go because obviously, in case you didn't know, there was a pandemic. So I couldn't go. At least over here. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Everyone's been talking about.
And so my sister had accumulated all these beers throughout the year for us to try. A lot of them, thankfully, were stouts and sours, so they will last like a bit longer. But she had bought all these ones as they were coming in very odd, like small batch, like four packs that sell out quite quickly, like the Sour Patch one, Joe, that I sent you, and I was like sending Joe like, I get to go and drink these, this is amazing. And then I didn't, and now they're still sitting in her fridge. There's like a Reese's peanut butter stout in there, and I was like, oh, come on. So she's saving them for when I come home this Christmas, hopefully. And she was like, can I send you them? And I was like, please don't. I was like, if I watch you try to send me those and they get lost or damaged in the post, I was like, I will cry, because they are too overall what she's accumulated. I was like, it's too expensive. I can't have you then pay a fortune to ship them and then they get lost or damaged.
Like, they're precious.
They're too precious for that.
And it'll make it that much more special too. Like, you've waited, the anticipation has grown, like it's going to be awesome.
Exactly. And I want to have them with her. Like, I don't like, cool, I can have them by myself, but I was like, it's not as fun as sharing that experience. I think a lot of like drinking beer, I don't know if you guys would agree, but a lot of drinking beer for me is the shared experience. So like, if I have something that's really good and interesting and just something unique that is maybe difficult to get again, I don't want to just sit and have it by myself. I can have it with my husband, sometimes I do, but if it's something that I don't think he'll necessarily fully appreciate, I'm like, I'll just have to hold on to it and wait until I see Joe or somebody else, because I want to share that experience with someone I know is going to equally appreciate that. And that's part of like what's really fun about drinking beer and enjoying beers. So, but this is really
especially
nice.
when it's like an interesting beer like this, you want to share it with someone that's going to appreciate it.
Totally. The number of times I've like brought beer to a party and been like wanting to talk about it and then not wanting to be that person at a party that's like, wait, what do you think? What do you taste? What do you smell? Like ruining everyone's vibes. Or like,
you can come to our parties because we'll be like, we'll tell you. You tell us what you think too.
That's literally us. I brought beers into work because they were, we have like our office has like Peronis in it and stuff. And I was like, that's fine. Like, that's not a problem. And I was like, but I'm gonna like just bring some stuff in from a local brewery and just put it there. And if you drink it, I mean, that's cool too. And then they started drinking it, and one of the guys was like, I had this one. It's just there was so much like flavor. I was like, what'd you get out of it? And then we spent like time going back and forth on like chat, being like, have you tried this one? Have you tried that one? And I was like, I could sadly just talk all day about beer and beer tasting and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't normally like to do that because I know no one wants to hear that. But when he was engaging me, I was like, you've come to me. This is your fault.
Yes. He made his bed. Now he must lay in it.
Exactly. I was like, you did this. But I get like stuff like this. Where do you kind of draw the inspiration from? Is it like, do you say, I've spotted a problem, like a brewer is having a problem, how do we solve that problem? Or is it a more proactive approach where you're like, this could be interesting, let's do that, or I'm aiming for this taste? Or is it a combination of all of them?
I would say it's definitely a combination. I mean, I think like the Cryo Hops, not the Cryopop, but Cryo Hops in general, were in large part kind of a response to brewers who were using these really high hopping rates, but were having issues with like too much material, too much beer loss. When you have to add tons of dry hops to get these, New England IPA styles, or even just, any really hoppy IPA, it's a lot of material to add, and it can really gum up the works and add a lot of kind of bract material, which can throw some pretty green flavors that people aren't necessarily looking for. So that was kind of like a problem solution. But then we also just, we have a really good sales and marketing team who very much have their finger on the pulse of like what brewers are looking for, what flavors they want. So for Cryopop, for example, we knew that brewers right now are really trying to achieve these super tropical, really citrusy, juicy flavors in their beers. Like the juicy IPA is like king in craft right now. And so we wanted to help them do that and like give them something that might be a little more user-friendly than trying to come up with these blends on their own. And, there's so much variation in hops. It's an agricultural product. So lot to lot variation can be pretty big, terroir, like year to year variation. So, brewers who are just starting out, for example, might not quite have as much I don't know, might not have the historical background of knowledge to adjust to those kinds of changes. So it can be nice to have something that's just going to like perform pretty reliably and then build recipes around that or whatever. So that was just kind of the result of us being aware of what brewers were looking for and what consumers were looking for, and trying to, you know, make something to help brewers achieve that.
It's pretty cool. I've got a serious question, Joe. I feel like you might be able to figure out where I'll go with this. In the US, do you have the term juicy boy? Do people call beers juicy boys?
Okay. No. I would say I hear crispy boy all the time.
Yes. Okay. So crispy boy translates, juicy boy doesn't.
Juicy boy misses me personally, but again, like you said, it's a big, and we'll say juicy. And I would maybe even say, I would probably just say juicy, but
juicy.
Would people say juice with like 50, like 5 O's? Would they just go like juice? Like, does that translate?
Yeah, that translates.
Yeah, they do that.
Just trying to figure out the similarities.
It's not just juicy.
I had to ask.
Juice.
Yeah,
that's where we go.
Fine. Yeah, we just needed to check that because people are going to want to know that. That's the real.
It is important.
Terminology. Important terminology.
Yeah. We've got a scientist, and we this is scientist approved.
Yes,
this is a word. I couldn't not take that advantage. Just ask that question.
I completely fully understand.
When you're developing hops, do you kind of, and this is something you don't necessarily know, but it's fine if it's not. Do you know more or less what flavors you're kind of expecting to get out of the hops you're developing, or is it more you kind of blend and mix, like if you're blending hops or something, do you kind of go, oh, roughly this is what I want, or do you kind of wait until after it's done to go, oh, we thought these two would be interesting together and here's what the result is?
So you're talking about hop blends and not the creation of new hop varieties? So for most blends there's kind of a target, I would say. I would say most blends there's a target, because otherwise we would just use single hops that exhibit characteristics. But like if we can't seem to get those characteristics out of any single hop, then a blending situation can be good. We're working on like this Cryopop series. We're probably going to release more that have different kind of flavor profiles but are in the same family. So I probably can't say much more than that, except that we are working on like kind of more flavor targeting, but that's not really new. I mean, we've done blends to try to like mimic certain hop profiles that maybe for hops that like German Perla, for example, is a hop that we can grow Perla in the Pacific Northwest, but we can't make it taste like German Perla because it will taste more. It'll be more citrusy and more fruity, and actually a lot of brewers are not looking for that for beers that they're using German Perla, and they want it to be just really herbal and like chill and like mellow for their crispy boys. And so they don't want to use, Pacific Northwest Perla that's like going to be really citrusy and punchy. So sometimes we'll do blends to try to, help imitate a flavor profile that a brewer might be looking for. But that's, I would say not quite as usual, because actually more what people are looking for is those bigger flavors. It's very rare that anyone wants less flavor. But.
Fair enough. When you've got something like Talus that obviously is kind of like related to other hops and that, did you kind of know, well, given it's sort of related to Sabro, it's going to have a coconutty taste to it, or was that more of like an experiment of like, let's just see what happens with it?
Yeah, well, the new variety development process is actually like close to 11 years, because you can only grow hops once a year, so you only get one shot per year at any given cross, and there's tons of screening that has to happen. So actually, like flavor and aroma and stuff doesn't really come into the mix for the first little while. There's a lot of agronomic stuff that actually needs to be considered. So is it resistant to powdery mildew? Is it resistant to, different pest, to different disease, hop targeting diseases? Is it, what's its yield? Does it give like big dense cones, or is it pretty sparse? Is it, how much water does it need? There's all these different considerations from an agronomic perspective that are really important, because a hop could smell like the rainbow, but if a farmer can't grow it without ruining their lives, it's not worth it. Yeah. So all of those considerations are huge at the beginning, and then it's not until you get a little bit later in the process that you start sticking noses on the cones and seeing if there's anything new and interesting, because the only reason you'd really want to release a new hop, there's so many hops to choose from. So why, if you want to release hops that are doing something different and unique. And so if you're smelling through a field of hops and you find one that smells amazing, but it smells amazing in the way that Mosaic smells amazing, then is that worth putting a lot of like investment into? Probably not. But if you pick one up and it smells like coconut and you're like, I never smelled coconut in a hop before, that's something quite interesting. And that's kind of those like Neo-Mexicanos lines that have been really popular, like Sabro, and they get that really coconutty, woody character that you definitely don't get out of the likes of Citra and Mosaic and stuff. So I feel like I just want to ramble, and I don't know if I even answered your question.
No, you definitely did. No, you 100%
you
did.
totally
No, I find it all interesting.
Yeah.
Like honestly, you could say whatever. I'm just all these.
Like...
we know that we're not going to get like even through. We're just going to have to skip half the questions, because it's like we've got so many questions, and it's like I feel like we're just overloading you with all of them. Should we just quickly have our second beer, and you could tell us? So basically, we both have a hop. So I don't know if yours is only Idaho 7. I've got a mix of Idaho 7, but I know like in our email exchanges, it mentioned sensory hop of the month. So I thought maybe you could tell us more about what the sensory hop of the month program is, and then maybe you could tell us a bit about Idaho 7 in particular. So
sure. Yeah. So we were kind of doing something in tandem with the kind of sales and marketing team, where they were trying to kind of shine a spotlight on certain varieties each month. And so we kind of were going to do something alongside that, where we basically would get a bunch of beers from the market that used that specific hop and taste through them as a group, because ideally single hop varieties, we actually get a lot of beer sent to us with all the different hops that we grow and sell. But as sensory scientists, we're always really interested in single hop beers, because as much as they're not like maybe the most exciting or dynamic beers, and sometimes they are, but often they're not, we really want to know what a hop does in a beer. And if I'm trying to tell you about what Idaho 7 does in beer, but I've only ever had ones where it's Idaho 7, Simcoe, and Mosaic, Idaho 7, and Citra. And, I'm like, well, I think it's this, but I don't know what was, there's so many other factors.
Yeah.
So anyway, just kind of training for our own knowledge, because we get asked these questions all the time. So just trying to like focus on single hops each month. It has fallen off a little bit as we get busier and closer to harvest. But Idaho 7 is one of my favorite hops to smell on the table, like to assess raw or like not in beer. It is so consistently good. Like when we smell we smell every lot of hops that gets delivered, and it's thousands and thousands during harvest. And so, we're smelling a lot of hops during that time. Nose fatigue is real.
I was going to ask, do you ever just go nose blind? Where you're just like, I can't smell anything.
We have to set it. We limit the number of samples we can do a day. So we get behind really fast, but we do maximum 60 a day in sets of 10, and then try to wait at least an hour between each set of 10. And we just spend all day, all day smelling hops, which is, it's a great experience. It's really good training, but it is fatiguing. I actually have a little like facial steamer. Everyone kind of makes fun of me because it sits on my desk, and I'll just like breathe in steam between, because I don't know, it's really dry here.
Yeah, you got to clean out the palate and
I was gonna say, do you have any tips for like okay, you've been smelling something, like you've been really focusing on trying to pick out smells and something, and then okay, you're going to go smell something else. Do you have any tricks or tips of like how you can sort of just quickly clear? I've heard like just do this and smell your arm, or is there anything else that you could tell us?
Yeah, I would say like definitely trying to smell something just like neutral is ideal. There's for a while coffee beans was the thing, but it's more fatiguing. It's a really strong aroma and it's different from the other aromas, but it's still gonna impact your ability to pick out. I mean, there are hops that have some aromas that are similar to things you could get in coffee. So if you're blasting, your nose with something that strong, you're probably going to lose sensitivity. So we use like unscented moist towelettes, like what you might get handed out on an airplane or something. The moisture is kind of helpful, and then it's just unscented, so it's not going to interfere. But if you don't have that, crook your arm, whatever. For beer, we use unsalted saltine crackers. So we'll just call them teens, because if they're unsalted, are they saltines? I don't know.
I guess they're kind of not, are
they? And water. But I was actually attended a seminar recently where they were talking about research that had been done on palate cleansing and how actually most of it is like a placebo, and really it's just time, and time is truly the only thing that's going to like restore your receptors. So you might feel like you're doing something by eating a cracker or like sniffing a moist towelette, but truly at the end of the day, the most cleansing thing is just like a 2-minute wait. But we don't always have that kind of time, so.
Not what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
Samples a day and all that. Joe, I know you've got some questions about sensory stuff. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just think I kind of trailed off and failed to answer your question about Idaho 7. And I was just going to say that it always smells so good on the table. Like when, we blind code ourselves. So when we're assessing a sample and filling out the ballot, we don't know what it is. We have no information about it, which is important. And I feel like 90% of the time when I'm like, dang, that smells amazing. And then I go look it up after my assessment. It's like Idaho 7 every time. And I don't know, some people it's a little aggressive on the like pine woody note. So I don't know how good of a single hop it always necessarily is, but I quite like those notes. So for me, it's one of my favorite hops, but I can understand why people might not love it on its own and would want to blend out that woodiness. But I think it's so grapefruity and kind of bubblegummy and nice.
I was going to say, I know you had questions, Joe, but before we got to your questions, because we had some questions on your sensory panel stuff, and then there was Joe had some even more specific, like nerdier questions, and we definitely wanted to talk to you about frozen, the fresh frozen hops, Frozies. I was going to say Frozies, and then I was like, I'm going to say that, and the pink boot stuff. We want to try to fit all that in, but just quickly, because obviously I don't think it's good for us to try to give you what we're smelling and tasting, because of the fact that mine's definitely not single hop, so I don't think I'll be able to really do much.
Mine's well pulled with Citra, and it was dry hopped with Citra Strata and Nelson Sauvin, as well as the Idaho 7. So I was going to say,
with the aromas,
sounds great though.
It smells amazing.
Really, I had that one. I really liked it.
It smells amazing.
Yeah. I think it does play well with others. I mean, trying it in blends is still valuable. I mean, most brewers aren't making single hop beers, so it is pretty important to know like whether or not it's ruining beers that it's being blended into. Obviously, it's not, or else it wouldn't be as big a hop variety as it is. But yeah, blends are still really good. We just get really nerdy with it sometimes.
I like getting nerdy though. I like made a little collection of single hop beers so that I could sit and be like, right, I'm going to try this one now, so I know what that's like in beer and what the aroma is.
I got the White Hag Smash Hop series because you had said it was really good for like single hop training.
So I got yourself like a bunch so that you know so you know how you pick it up. Yeah. And then when you try another beer and you're like, what's this? What are there something in this I really like? Oh, it's Idaho 7 or Citra or whatever. It's just really good for training yourself for your tastings, I think.
Yeah, that's super smart.
Yeah.
But if we were to have a single hopped Idaho 7, like what aromas would we be getting, and what should we be tasting from an Idaho 7 single hopped beer if we had those?
Big questions, because it would depend on a lot of factors, but I would say predominantly you're probably going to get a really high citrus note. For me, it usually comes through grapefruit, maybe almost like grapefruit pith, like almost skin, or that sharpness that almost borders on like a resinous woody. Citrus meets woody, because I also always get pretty high pine resin, Christmas tree kind of vibes. And then I do often get like a pretty fruity I would say tropical, maybe like pineapple, which pineapple always feels a little bit close to citrus. And then depending on the lot or how it's used, you can get a lot of like pretty tropical stone fruity notes out of it as well. And then I always get like a little bit of a bubblegum note as well, depending on how it's used as well. But yeah, I'd say those are typically what I get.
When you said bubblegum, I was like, there's something sweet in this. And I can't quite pick it out. And when you said bubblegum, I was like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite picking it out, but yeah, there's a real sweetness. And I was like, it's a bit floral, it's a bit sweet. It's not tropical, and it's not citrus. It's bubblegum is what it is.
I was gonna say mine's definitely citrus. It's like, for me, it's very much like lemon. Like I get a lot of like kind of lemon in it, in the sense of like almost a US kind of lemonade type way of lemon, where there is kind of that sweetness to it, but not overly so. So yeah, that's interesting. The second you said citrus, I was like, that's definitely what I'm getting. So but yeah, Joe, I'll let you had some questions. So I'll let you ask yours.
I suppose so you've got, is it the sensory dome that you've got,
we call it the Aroma Dome?
The Aroma Dome, that's it. I watched
that name is amazing.
Yeah. So I watched
dumb.
I love it.
I feel really bad because I came up with it, and it was just a joke, like, because we actually had this thing called the Tacoma Dome, which is like such a local reference to Washington State. It's like not even funny. I think they bulldozed it. Maybe it's still there. Sorry, Tacoma Dome, if you're still there. But it just kind of rhymed and rolled. And you actually don't need to know that reference to think it's kind of funny, because it's still sort of like a nice internal rhyme scheme or whatever. But I think we just said it as a total joke, and then it really got picked up by everyone. Just kind of when we were building the project, everyone just kind of kept like, oh, in the Aroma Dome, da 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 da. But we were kind of joking, but then it sort of became the name. Yeah. And then like the whole company, it's like on our website, and they made us this like cutout metal thing that says like, welcome to the Aroma Dome. And it's not even a dome. It's not even a dome. It's just a regular building.
That's brilliant.
Like I just like, you could challenge people to like a sensory off, where you'd be like, I'm gonna have a sensory off in the Aroma Dome. You can treat it like wrestling.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely. That was totally the vibe, and I don't know, it just got out of hand really quickly.
Speak to your marketing team. You need to speak to your marketing team. You could get on the socials. You could be doing TikToks like wrestling style, challenging people to sensory offs while teaching them about sensory things.
We've actually talked about doing like the sensory Olympics or something, where you do like that thing where you put your head, maybe this is really American, but you put your head on a bat, like a baseball bat,
I know,
and go in a circle.
It's very American, but I know it is.
Get really dizzy, and then like run across the field, and then go like smell some beer and try to like say what the aromas are or something.
That sounds amazing. I want to see this.
I don't know.
That is brilliant. The Aroma Dome. Can I just, before Joe, can I just say something? When you mentioned baseball, this has nothing to do with beer, but I found out for the first time how weird our American sports are. Did you know that US sports do not have like dance cams and kiss cams and stuff like that? They don't have them.
That's not true.
There's no dance cams.
In the US?
No, in the UK.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Oh, you said US.
You said
US.
Okay,
sorry. I meant
sure do.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I meant
no,
in
don't.
the UK, they don't have things like dance cams.
No. Why would we
What's
have
the
that?
point of going?
Well,
that's what I said.
Don't. That's why I don't.
Watch sports?
Yeah,
Pass.
they actually
Pass.
watch. People actually watch the actual sports.
The second you said like, oh, we spin on a baseball bat, I was thinking like, no one's gonna. People over here aren't gonna get that. But also, does it matter, because they don't even have dance cams? So what's the point?
So
anyway,
Joe,
carry on.
I will say that your guys' song game is much stronger. So the group chants, the sing-alongs are superior in the UK for sure.
My husband would be able to talk on that for a little bit, I think.
They don't really do like slow claps as much. No. Like, I feel like we can do a mean slow clap in the US. The UK is like, it's just not happening.
We're gonna tell the referees blind.
yeah. A lot of passion.
Yeah,
but then you could say that, but being from Boston, like sports passion is definitely also quite high. So I'm used to that level. But Joe, back to your actual beer related questions. Aroma Dome.
My questions are, or the question is, how do you train your sensory people? Like what things do they do to like calibrate their palates, and at what level do they need to be in that when you're like, right, you're now gonna provide us with data because you're at the right level?
Man, that's like, that's the big question. That's a huge question. It's what we spend a lot of our time developing and implementing is panelist training and validation. For the hop panel, it starts with just smelling tons of hops. Like there's just no way around it. You have to get your nose into tons of hop samples. To start, I know when I first started with hop sensory, it was like, smells like hops, smells like hops, smells like hops. Like I was like not getting any nuance, but after, your 50th sample, you start to kind of be able to like blank out that background hoppiness and pick up on the nuances. So we actually encourage anyone who wants to join our hop sensory panel to participate in harvest sensory, which is when there are, 50 plus samples a day that we need to get noses on. And we try to get at least 5 people to smell every single lot as well. So whoo-wee, it's big, but that's the best way to like just jump in feet first. But then, so in addition to just smelling a lot of hops as a group and talking about what we're smelling, we also, for both hops and beer panel, have reference standards. So we try our best to create like a perfect example of every single aroma on our ballot. And there are over 80. They're grouped into bigger categories, but of the smallest possible category, I think we have around 80 terms. So for example, within citrus, we have lemon, lime, lemongrass, grapefruit, and orange. And so we have standards for each one of those things. And, we'll have like a citrus day or a citrus station, and we'll have all those aromas out and people can smell them, and we'll have them fill out, a little worksheet kind of, describing how they tell the difference between them. What's your little cue? Like when you smell orange, how do you separate it from lemon? What about that aroma says orange to you? And then we try to get them to really remember that. And so we have kits of these reference standards, we call them, that have like 25 different aromas in them and these little vials, and we'll go through and smell them. We also do like repeated measures tests. So during regular panel, we'll slip in sample, and they don't have any idea that they're being tested. This is just part of their regular panel duties, but we'll run the same hop through twice. We'll give it to them at the beginning and then at the end or whatever, and see, are they rating the same hop the same way, multiple times? Are they consistent about how they're rating it? We'll spike samples with beer and hops. So we'll like squirt some of that reference standard into a hop sample or a beer sample and see if they rate that particular aroma really high. And as far as validation, we're still kind of developing like something that's more scientific or like solely data driven. But for now, we just kind of keep an eye on people's performance, and we record their performance on all of these different things. And once we kind of see that they're consistently aligning with the rest of the panel, they're identifying spikes when we send them through, they're consistently rating the same hop or beer sample over time, then we start to include their data. They get a validation or whatever.
Okay.
And there are some panelists who like we haven't used their data, and they're just still training. They're still participating and doing everything that the rest of the panel is doing, but maybe they're new to it. And so they're still on panel. They're doing everything the panel is doing, but we're leaving their data out for now until we see that progress toward a little bit more consistency and acuity.
Okay. And how do you become one of your people on your sensory panels?
It's all internal. So everyone who's on our panel works at YCH and has other roles. And you would think I don't know, we have probably 30 panelists total. Some people do just hops, some people do just beer, and some people do both. But they've got full-time other jobs to do, and people are busy. So, people have to do a pretty honest self-assessment of their capacity, because it is quite a commitment to be on sensory panel. There's a lot of training. There's panel itself. But it's really fun. I mean, anyone can do it if they're interested. We're always kind of recruiting. You have to go through some trainings and then, welcome aboard. So we have pretty good participation at this point. It was a struggle at first, but now that our team's grown a little bit, we've been able to hire some more people and spend a little bit more time, making being a panelist like a fun and rewarding work activity or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. I would love to do that.
I was going to say, like, if we just happen to be traveling around the area,
Oh my gosh.
Just drop
You guys
in
ever
and be
get
like,
out to
"Hey."
Just
Yakima?
drop in and be a panelist for a day. That would be like insane. That would be so cool.
You would be more than welcome if you ever find yourself out. Most people in the
We'll hold you
brewing
to that.
industry make it to Yakima at some point, just
Yeah.
because it is sort of the epicenter, the hop epicenter. So keep an eye out for opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys, so like you're based obviously in the US, but do you guys have bases elsewhere? Because I know, so I helped out a brewery at Bigfoot Festival, for example, and one of the people that came up to our stand was, I think, one of probably the regional sales people in the UK. It was someone that was from the US, but I didn't know if they were sort of based here or if they had kind of flown over for festival season, for example, and keeping up those, because I found the festivals were quite important for building those relationships and kind of having those conversations that get to happen face to face that don't always happen when you're back at a brewery. So are those people sort of based in other countries, or do they just fly over and come visit, or how does that actually work?
Yeah, we have loads of sales staff based in their region. So I think we have like between 5 and 10 people in the UK alone that are based there permanently. But we have a kind of a headquarters in Belgium. So there's quite a few people. We have a big warehousing, and so it's kind of a hub, like a shipping hub, but then there's also a lot of people working there. And then we also have something similar in Hong Kong. But we've got, sales staff all over the world, basically any country with a brewing scene. We've got at least one person there, and then all over the US as well. So yeah, pretty international at this point. And then we're also expanding in Canada. So we're going to have a little headquarters in Canada as well coming up soon. So yeah, getting our little fingers out into the world. But still the majority, obviously because all the production is here, then all the quality, and then research and development's here, and marketing, and a huge internal sales staff as well that kind of, they all have their counterparts that are out in the region, and then they're here to kind of connect the field staff with the mothership, so to speak.
That's cool.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I know we've overrun, but do you have time for like a few more questions?
I do.
There's a few more things we
Absolutely.
100% want to go. Joe, I'll let you. I know how excited you are with Frozies, so I'll let you
I
lead the
know
Frozies
all
chat.
about Frozies. So being in Kent, like green hop beer is coming up soon here. So when we heard about Frozies, about your flash frozen hops.
So you're calling them Frozies because you must have watched a seminar that I was in.
I watched the seminar and it was like, I'm going to call it Frozies. And I'm like, I'm calling it Frozies then because that just sounds fun.
I remember you
we're
did
gonna
that
make
tasting. You did the tasting at Bigfoot, and then you came back and we were talking about green hops or something, and then you went, someone from like Yakima was there and was saying about how like, oh, we might have a fix for something. We'll see what's happening soon. And we guessed, we were like, it's going to be frozen hops, isn't it?
My favorite question to ask a brewery is, have you ever done a green hop beer?
Yes.
And then because I'm like, where you're positioned, are you near somewhere where you can get green hops? And so I was asking Brew York, had you ever done a green hop beer? They were like, no, because we tend to just use American hops, like we don't really use English hops. And they had a representative from Yakima Chief Hops, and he was like, well, there's something we're working on. You'll be excited about. So that might change. And I was like, oh.
She came back. We were like, what could it be? It's frozen hops. It's definitely it has to be frozen hops.
They're going to find a way to get those green hops over here. It's got to be frozen because how else are they going to get them over here? So then when that came out, I was like, yes, hopped onto that webinar, watched it. All about the Frozies. So yeah.
I think the marketing team was like, everyone's calling them Frozies now. I was like, sorry.
made it happen.
She's like, that's what we call them now. Like she watched the webinar, she came out, she's like, just so you know, they're called Frozies.
That's what they're called.
Like,
all the cool kids are called.
That's what we're gonna call them. That's what we're calling them from now on.
Oh man, they're gonna kill me.
Did that go along the lines of you realized that there was a gap in the market for that, and so it was like, right, how are we going to fix this problem?
Totally. I mean, you'll be aware, being in hop country, that like fresh hop beer, we call them fresh hops. I think you guys call them green.
We call them green.
And then I think we're trying to like call them wet hops.
Wet hops.
All the hops are fresh, but whatever. And all the hops are green, so it's like language. Anyway, that fresh, wet, green hops. you have like 24 hours from picking to brewing, and the coordination that requires is just like, I don't even like to think about it because it makes my head hurt and it gives me anxiety. And so, that's a real challenge, but it's also such a fun thing to work with. You get such different flavors. And it's just such a cool connection. Again, that's like such a big thing for Yakima Chief, is like connecting the farmers and the growers, connecting the brewers and the growers. And I think that green wet hops are like kind of the epitome of connecting those two players. But you'll just be SOL if you're not in the right region or whatever. And we've even had we've flown like overnight. We had like a brewery, I think it was in Korea or Japan, maybe. I think Korea though, that had us like fly them. They paid to have like fresh hops flown.
Wow.
So that they could do a brew. And I don't know what they would have paid for that. And I hope that it was worth it for them. And I hope they had a lot of fun with it. But like most breweries are not swimming in that kind of dough. So
even doing something like that, do you have to keep them like above?
They still have to be kept
to be able.
They still have to be kept really cold. Fresh hops are actually really like flammable, so you have to be really careful. Like it's a whole thing. Like they'll spontaneously combust in piles.
Wow.
Truly. So you have to dry them out. I mean, that's why we dry them out to preserve them. That's not the only reason, but that's a huge part of it. And so anyway, it's just a really special thing. And then, there's, so in Yakima Valley, hops are huge. We're one of the biggest hop growing regions in the world, obviously, but then also tons of other produce, tree fruits and berries. And, you name it, it grows really well here. We just have a really, really great growing region, because of the 300 days of sunshine a year, but then proximity to the mountains means we have tons of water for irrigation. And then the soil's just quite good and whatever. Anyway, there are a lot of, producers that do, it's a process called IQF, which is something quick frozen. Anyway, I'll stop talking about things I don't know about, but basically it's a process for preserving. It's like flash freezing or whatever, I think, something along those lines. And it's a proprietary process that they've developed to like just really instantaneously freeze. I think the company we work with is really well known for doing blueberries. So they freeze them and they keep all the nutrients and all the flavor, and the structure and everything. And so you buy these frozen blueberries and they're perfectly intact and they taste amazing, whatever. And so I think the wheels started turning, like, could we do that with hops? And, again, we did a bunch of trials and brewed, and we did a difference test, which is like, we use a tetrad test. I don't know, this is like a sensory test, where you basically have 2 samples of 2 beers, so 4 total, and you blind code them, you randomize them, and then you have tons of people see if they can group them correctly into their, like, identify the 2 that are the same and therefore different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's so hard to explain, weirdly. And it's just a way to see if there's a perceptible difference between 2 products. And people couldn't really tell the difference between a beer that was brewed with true green hops and a beer that was brewed with these frozen green hops. And so we were like, okay, this works. But logistically, can we ship things? I mean, they have to be not just frozen, but like really frozen. They have to be like super cold shipped, which is expensive and challenging. And so we did a whole bunch of, trials where we put temperature trackers and all these things on these, shipping pallets and ship things to breweries and monitored if the temperature was remaining consistent, and then had the breweries, give us feedback on how did they look when they arrived, how did they brew, etc. And it all, lined up and worked well. And so, we released the product, and it's pretty exciting. If I were a brewer that was somewhere that couldn't get fresh hops, I would be pretty excited to get my paws on some.
Yeah, I think they're really exciting because green hop beer is just so interesting anyway. And then having the opportunity to get green hops from somewhere else, and then potentially, if you keep those frozen, you can do green hop at a different time of year. Like, so you can get those amazing flavors at a different time. Like, that's just really exciting.
And another thing that we think is really fun is you can blend hops that you could never have blended fresh before because of the pick windows, which opens up a whole new kind of realm of possibilities of flavor there as well. So
yeah, that was really interesting in the webinar that I watched. Yeah, because I hadn't even thought about that.
That wouldn't have even crossed my mind.
Yeah, that you know,
I thought green hops. That's it.
Because two of the different ones. Because I know when we have green hop here, that quite a few of the local breweries, we have a festival in our park with the ones that are local. But there's always one local brewery that has their green hop beers last and towards the end of the month, because they use the later cropping hops, so theirs aren't ready for that time. So having that option to be able to blend different ones that you wouldn't normally, that's just opening up that palette of flavors and aromas to brewers. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
End to end, how long did that process then take to sort of experiment with that? Or roughly, obviously it doesn't have to be exact, but
say about a year. I think we brewed the beers for that tetrad test fresh hop time last year, so harvest, so like September, and then spent the whole year kind of testing all the shipping logistics and storage logistics and stuff, and brewing with ones we had stored and different things and everything. I think, you know, if things hadn't gone as well as they did, I don't know if we would. A year timeline is pretty tight for a release. If anything had been like, oh, that didn't work, like the temperature went way up on the shipping container for some reason, we're not really sure why, we got to go investigate, or oh, we brewed 6 months later but it tasted like garbage, okay, what's going on? But none of that really happened, so we were able to move forward at a pretty fast clip on this one.
That's quite, it's quite interesting. I think like over here, the people that we've spoken to, we've had conversations with, have all sort of been a bit nervous about the idea of like, oh, but what if now the American hops are now going to overtake English hops, and suddenly you know, everyone wants to use American green hops for their green hop beers instead of English ones. And I mean, my viewpoint was, you know, I think the great thing is though is it now gives you variety, and actually I think what you guys have done is actually going to boost a resurgence in English green hop beers within the craft industry, because I think you guys will probably speak more to the craft industry than maybe to the traditional industry, and so I think a lot of the green hop beers that I've come across since Joe taught me about them last year have all been, the majority have been from traditional breweries, and I think maybe what you've kind of done as the royal you is kind of open that door to more craft breweries to go, here, try some green hop beers with this, and if you actually like what you're doing here, then they'll probably come back around and go, now let's do something a bit more traditional, and it will cycle back around. Do you see there being any competition there, or do you think it's going to be more of a working together sort of thing?
Yeah, I really like the way you put that, and I hadn't really thought about that aspect of it, but I bet if craft brewers like are able to brew with green hops of the hops that they're familiar with, you know, they're comfortable with these, you know, American hops that they've been using in their IPAs for years, then yeah, maybe some additional interest would be, because they're really for different styles. I mean, the two regions of hops are like so different, and I don't see them in direct competition really, because it's just the utility is so different, I would say. So yeah, that would be really cool if there was like a kind of resurged interest in green hops, in English green hops from the craft beer world. I would love to see that.
It'd be cool to see more of like a series of like, okay, we've got some, in this series of green hop beers, we have some American ones and we have some English ones, and here's the whole you know, like old to new world sort of thing.
Yes,
quite cool. But yeah, I think that's sort of, I never thought about it from the angle that the seminar came from, which is like, yeah, now you can blend things you could never blend before. My mindset was all on the green hop beers, and then I was like, when people started saying, oh, I'm a bit worried, what if people don't care about English ones? I was like, that's never going to happen, because I think if anything that just reignites.
Yeah,
but that's it.
It's not the same people who care. Yeah,
exactly. And I think if anything, it's just going to reignite the interest in the craft community for these traditional English.
I would love to see that.
It's different aromas and flavors. Like, you're going to get different things out of it. So yeah,
completely. Before we wrap up, I think we wanted to talk to you a lot about the Yakima Chief Hop and Pink Boots blend. Joe, I'll let you sort of start.
So I've got a 2019 blend packet here.
Oh, that blend was so good. People are
Oh,
clamoring for that
I
one.
haven't used it yet. I'm gonna do a New England IPA. I'm gonna homebrew with them.
You're going to
Amazing.
send me one, obviously, because it's a New England IPA. And if you
Obviously.
don't send it to me,
Yeah.
I'll cry.
I've not done. I tend to do saisons and darker beers.
Yeah.
That's what I brew. That's what come out well. When I've done a paler beer, it's never really come out as well. But I think it's just because I don't particularly enjoy hoppy beers. So I was just like, right,
Sure.
I'm setting myself this challenge. We're going to use this lovely blend. I'm gonna make
if you do a hoppy beer and don't send it to me, I'll cry.
I know.
And I'm not a crier, so if I cry, it's going to be
worry,
extra
you'll get
sad.
one. Don't worry. But yeah, we just wondered how that collaboration came about and kind of the logistics of it, of getting people to try different hops and create that blend.
Yeah. So it started. I think this is our 5th year of doing this blend, and we had that was actually before my time at Yakima Chief that it started. But I think basically that we had an RSM who was a member of Pink Boots in California, and brought it up to the CEO at the time, and had identified an opportunity for YCH to give back. YCH makes a pretty big effort to contribute to the brewing community, to the local community here in Yakima, and to brewers, a lot of charitable work and that kind of thing, and part of our kind of mission statement or whatever. And so she said that this might be a good opportunity to help a good cause and contribute what we are good at, which is hops. And I think it kind of came from there as a way to just help further encourage diversity in the brewing community, which is important to us. And from there, I think it exploded. Now breweries, we just sent out the kits for chapters, Pink Boots chapters, to do their selection. And we send out, I think it was 10 or 11 different hop varieties, small pack, like the pack you just held up, that little homebrew size pack. And then the chapters, we send out sheets for them to, fill out their feedback or whatever and create their blends. And then, it's a whole voting, process, and we whittle down, everyone's kind of favorite hops, and then everyone votes on the final blend or whatever. So it's really a pretty collaborative effort, as much as it can be when you have thousands of people participating. But it is a really good opportunity. We're really spoiled. We get to smell hops all the time whenever we want. Tons of hops. Oh my God, so many hops. But there's a lot of brewers that don't, they just have the hops that they're brewing their regular recipes with, and they'll give them a quick assessment to check for off notes before they brew with them or whatever, but they don't necessarily get to sit down with 12 different hop varieties, sniff them all side by side, and really spend that time digging into the sensory component of it. So I think that's a really nice thing that YCH provides. And again, it's an experience that makes people it makes you a better brewer. It makes you better. It's not just brewers in Pink Boots, it's people who are in sales and marketing that work in tap rooms. No matter where you're working in the brewing industry, having that hands-on experience with any of the raw materials is super valuable. And then it's just builds that community. It's something you're doing with your group. And then, we donate a bunch of money from the proceeds to Pink Boots and fund the scholarships that that's the whole. I'm a member of Pink Boots. I don't know. But I don't think I probably should say what Pink Boots even is. It's a organization that raises money to provide scholarships to further the education of women, female identifying people in the brewing, and now actually the whole fermented beverage industry. As of recently, it kind of expanded to include a little bit more beyond brewing. But YCH, I think I wrote the number down, has contributed $257,000 to Pink Boots scholarships. Wow. So that's amazing. Huge. And that means sending women to Germany and go do brews and in breweries there, or attend courses, brewing courses at different universities, or to do the Cicerone certification, or all that kind of stuff. So
It's amazing.
but just helping women get a little bit of a leg up, because it can be hard to break in and people don't always assume you're competent. So you have to be even more qualified than other people to get, seen, and it's getting a lot better, but we've still got a lot of ways to go. And so this is Pink Boots is a great organization for just kind of giving another little step on the ladder for women who are trying to, break into the industry or further themselves within the industry. And I'm genuinely, truly proud to work for a company that takes that seriously and supports that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we don't actually have a Pink Boots. We were talking about this on numerous occasions. We don't have Pink Boots chapters. I tried to encourage like a few people I know that are like in brewing to. It's like, you should start it. But I don't know, because I don't know what actually goes into starting it.
It's not easy to start a chapter. When I was at Harriet Watt, a friend of mine who's a brewer, she was, trying to look into it, and she's one of those really organized process people. And I was like, if anyone can do it, she can do it. But she didn't.
She can
do
it.
I think you're right. It is probably quite difficult. Yeah. But I do think like over here we really, really could benefit from that, having that program as well.
There's so many women brewing, and with Harriet Watt and like my brewing and distilling course, I mean, it was male dominated, but I would say about a third was women, and that's like pretty good for any given. I think that this next generation of like younger people entering the industry is like so much closer to 50-50 than it ever has been. So
I think over here, having that chapter would provide good role models as well over here for people to say, you can do this. Because I think, tying it back into something we said at the beginning, I think of the imposter syndrome that, Joe and I have spoken about numerous times. Anyone that listens to this knows we've spoken about it so many times, and people that know us personally know that we've spoken about it so many times. I think a lot of that can feed into the fact that, where it has historically been male dominated, and you do sometimes feel like you need that leg up. Like, I think having a chapter over here would be quite good, because it will sort of show those role models and show people like, you don't have to have imposter syndrome, like, you can sort of go and you can do this and you've got this. So I think that was a really interesting thing that you guys did, doing that blend with them.
It's amazing.
I'm actually meeting with the Yakima Pink Boots chapter tonight to do our little selection.
Amazing.
So
I've been I follow quite a few of the chapters on Instagram, and I've been like eagerly watching them, like planning it and getting together, and I'm seeing, and I'm like, I wonder what ones they're gonna pick. I want to do it.
It's fun.
Was doing the blender challenge during the pandemic, or was it actually okay because you send the kits out, therefore you didn't have to try to get, and obviously where it's all spread out, like, was that actually not as much of a hurdle as it might have been, because the fact that you can just send the kits out and people can do it in the spaces that are comfortable for them?
It actually brought a lot more people in that probably wouldn't have otherwise been able to participate, because in previous years we've done it at the annual Pink Boots meeting, the big national one that coincides with CBC, I think, or one of the big brewing conferences. I can't remember. Okay. I've never actually attended one because it's been a pandemic most of the time I've worked for this company.
Fair.
But
you'll let off this time.
Yeah. But yeah, it used to be a big physical gathering. And obviously couldn't be last year and won't be again this year. But yeah, sending the kits out, I think, is allowed, because not everyone can fly to somewhere. I mean, especially internationally, but even within the US, not everyone can take that time off to go do this thing that's essentially volunteering. It's very fun, but it is volunteer work. So to send the kits out to the chapters has really opened it up to a lot more people, which I think is ultimately quite good.
That's pretty. Do you think you'll continue to do that in the years that follow then?
That's a great question.
Or will there be a blend maybe of doing both?
I think it'll likely be a blend. That's kind of the way we've moved with hop selection. It used to be everyone came here to select their hops for the coming years during harvest. And now I think this year I know it's going to be a bit of a blend. There will be brewers coming out here, but also we'll be sending hops to them where they are. And I have to imagine that'll probably be a permanent thing, because it does make more sense in a lot of ways.
I guess, like, last question I've got, and Joe, you might have some more after, but is there any like parting words you want to give sort of women that are even considering about getting into the beer industry in some capacity? Any message you want to send, or any inspiration you can give, or anything like that?
Oh, that's big.
It doesn't have to be that big. It could literally be like be like a shy above, like just do it. Or female identifying as well, I should say, not just
female identifying people.
Yeah, I feel like my brain's just like all of that's coming in is cliches, like fake it till you make it, and like follow your heart.
I go
like,
by fake it till you make it, so I totally preach.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I would actually like, I don't know. I think just having the audacity to like show up and is a big part. And I would almost like say more to people who are already embedded in the industry to like reach out your hand and like pull people into the group and invite women to the table, because I think there's a long time where people kind of felt like there was only room for one, or, you know, there's like almost a competition between women in male dominated industries to keep their spot or stay one of the boys or be seen in this certain way to have a better interaction with their male colleagues or whatever. And I just think, we don't have time for that anymore. Like that's a bad attitude. And
I swear all the time.
Okay. It's a bad attitude and it sucks. And I even think that I used to be a little bit that way. Even in like high school, I had a mostly guy group of friends and I was kind of not that nice to like other, I'm guilty of it. And I think we all are to some extent. And I think just trying to like make sure to extend an extra welcoming like hand to women who are joining your team or who are trying to get a seat at the table. Because women did that for me and I probably wouldn't be here if they hadn't. And I think that that's like our best bet is like, it has to come, the call has to come from inside the house,
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah.
No, that is absolutely brilliant. That's much better than my Shia LaBeouf, just do it. So that's more profound than anything that I would have said if I were in your situation. So, Joe, any other questions from your end?
Are you doing a virtual harvest this year or a blended one, or have you gone back to everyone come into the ranches to get their hops?
Yeah, it'll be a blend. It'll be a blend this year. I think as of a couple months ago, it was like everyone's coming, and now it's like less people are coming, which is probably good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will still, there's going to be, we're going to set up some parameters and protocols and stuff for anyone who's visiting. And a lot of people are just going to do it virtual. So yeah, a blend.
Amazing. Love it. Yeah. Any last words you want to give us?
Yeah, anything you want to plug? Anything like feel free to shout about anything. Frozies.
Yeah.
Aroma Dome. Frozies.
Don't call them Frozies. No, do it. No, I thank you so much for having me. I think we talked about everything.
Thank you for coming.
You guys already asked about everything I would have ever brought up. So this was super fun. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on. We are so grateful to that. Like literally when I messaged, I was like, if I hear back, like I'm sure they'll just be too busy anyway.
Like, they're not
so when I got the message,
I was like, no, because I put up stuff. I was like, I put up stuff about the webinar I was on. I was like, and they replied. I was like, they'll reply.
When I got a response, I was like, and it was quite quick. I was like, oh my god, they responded. Oh, this is amazing. So thank you so much. We had so many questions. We tried to narrow it down. I'm sorry we threw so much at you, but we are eternally grateful for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And
take care.
Thanks, guys.
So that was Tessa from Yakima Chief Hops.
I got to talk to a scientist.
That was so fun.
I like just dropping that in. Like, I spoke to a scientist. No big deal or anything like that. Her job is so cool.
And from Yakima Chief Hops, who are one of the massive American hop growers out there, and do have like. They are responsible for Sabro. They are responsible for Mosaic.
Talus.
They're responsible for Talus. They're responsible for
Cryopop.
They're responsible for Cryopop. all the cryo hops. Like they're the people that made those. So that's pretty cool. And she was so lovely.
She was so nice. Her parting words of advice were amazing. I literally think that was so much better than I could ever have put into words. It was great.
You didn't even think they were going to reply to us. I told you they would.
It was just one of those things I was like, and this is a lesson to everybody out there, right? What does it hurt to reach out? Because I was sort of prepared for the worst of like, I'm never going to get a response to this. And then I got a response, and that was such an amazing conversation. And I mean, we had to cut out like so many questions because we were very conscious that we were overrunning with her, and we were like, she's got so many things to do. She decided we've got to cut these out. So yeah, we skipped over like a whole lot. There's so many more questions. I could have sat and talked to her for like a whole afternoon, and it would have, you know, that was during her daytime hours as well. So, you know, it was really lovely that she made some time to talk to us and sort of give us an overview of a whole bunch of stuff that we were so interested in. So
it's all right, because one day we're going to go to Yakima and we're going to
be sensory people.
And we're going to go, hi, we're going to come and do sensory today. You said we could. And
you said that it would be really great.
And
I was really proud of myself that when we were going through the Cryopop tasting notes, and I was like, I'm getting this. And she's like, I got that a lot on what the feedback was from the sensory panel. And I was like, that's amazing. I want to go to the Aroma Dome first of all. So yeah, I would love to go out there and visit, and like even go on holiday out there and just be like, can I help you pick for a day or do some sensory stuff for a day? Just to like, to me, that would be like a fun holiday activity. Like honestly, I would really love that. So
I'm such a big geek. I love it.
Yeah, when she was talking about
holiday,
when she was talking about like, yeah, I want to talk to people about how beer tastes and so I was like, we do too.
You can come to my parties. Please come
like,
to my parties and talk to me
time.
about beer.
But yeah, I also just want to take a moment to say I got a message on the Instagrizzle.
Yeah.
From Wes. You'll know Wes.
Yeah.
He messaged me saying that he's all for jazzy openings, first of all. So I hope he likes this opening. I hope this one really jazzed it up.
I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, thanks. It just came to me. So I really hope that he appreciated this one. But then he also called out the fact that there was a missed opportunity to greet with either a huzzah or a good morrow during the mead episode.
Right, you did miss that. You've been telling me that you're going to do exciting highs, and you haven't been.
Yeah, but I think that's also because
hard done by.
The jazzier the intro is, the more I make myself laugh with it when you pull it off without even flinching.
And then you can't do it, can you?
And then it comes down to it, and I'm just like, hi.
You're just not as professional as me, you see.
That is a bold statement. Because I am not professional. I love when people go, oh, you think you're an influencer? I absolutely do not think I'm an influencer. I don't think I can influence my dog to eat her dinner half the days. Who do you think I'm influencing? I'm influencing nobody.
Helen is her own woman.
She's a strong, independent woman.
Yes,
she's
she
an
is.
Alpha. She's raised by two alphas.
Right.
Like, she understands, she gets it.
Yeah.
But I feel like I just had to issue a sincere apology to Wes, because yes, that was a missed opportunity by me.
He's right.
He's saying that hopefully there'll eventually be a Mead 2 episode. So Mead 2, I'll buy a drinking horn.
I have to get mine out of storage.
Peasant myself up, and I will make sure to say good morrow to everybody, or huzzah. So that will be the next mead episode. I just felt I had to issue a sincere apology because that was my bad. I own that. I take that on board. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm so sorry, Wes. And everybody else, I've really offended you all.
Yeah,
so
you just let everybody down.
Yeah, hopefully this episode made up for it. That's worse. It's worse, Joanne. I really hope this episode made up for it, because
this was amazing.
I think there's a lot of good stuff in it. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And yeah, to finish that off, if you want to talk to me, you want to talk hop science stuff with me, I'm probably not as capable of talking about some hot science as maybe Joe is, but I can talk to you about the interesting stuff that you really want to know about that I can't answer for you, but I'll relate. You can find me on Instagram, adventures_in_hoptimism. Come find me, DM me. We'll have conversations about all the things we want to know about hops and can't actually answer. If you want actual answers on stuff, probably. Joe, where can people find you?
I mean, I can answer some questions. I can't answer all of them because I'm not a hop scientist or a hop sensory scientist, but I probably have some answers for you. If you'd like to talk to me, I am a woman's brew on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But you can come to my beer school and come and learn about hops and what flavors and aromas you will get from various different hops. If you come and join my beer school, Love Beer Learning, we are on Facebook. I generally hang out on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on TikTok, and we are on Pinterest. We also have a website where you can find out more about how you can learn about hops and sensory tasting with me. That's lovebeerlearning.co.uk. And we also have an email address, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. We'll pick up emails for the podcast there as well. So if you've got somebody you want us to reach out to that you would like to hear us talk to on the podcast, let us know and we will ask, because if we don't ask, we don't get.
Exactly. That's one thing I learned. And definitely go and check out Yakima Chief Hop on Instagram. I think the handle's just literally Yakima Chief, but they are Yakima Chief Hops, because there's as she mentioned, there is definitely a distinction between the ranch and the hops. So look for them on Instagram. You can see all the really interesting stuff they're doing with, you know, their not Frozies, their pink boots blend.
We're making Frozies,
so go check them out. It's I think she wanted to sign off on it, but then also she's like, I shouldn't, but I'm going to. So we're signing off on it because we have no responsibility there.
There's no marketing people that are going to get mad at us. We're going with Frozies, people.
We have zero accountability. So Frozies, that's what we're going with. So yeah, go check them out. Go check us out. Let us know what you want to hear. And with that note, Joe.
Cheers.